really excited to see so many people in the room thinking similar things.
Hi, I'm Dan Schultz. Slifty on the internet. And I'm at the Internet Archive nowadays. About 2 years working on TPT. Before that I was at Open News Development across the globe. I did MIT Media Labs. So it was a civic techie project. And a lot of prototypes around things like caption, transcription. The latest, which is something I'll talk about. The archive artificial intelligence. Really come to learn about what everyone else hears. And with my archive hat on, you might want to use some data or collaborate and come up types of data that can build on top. We have a lot.
Hi, I'm Jay Bruce. I started libraries. I currently journalism and very happy to see both of you I currently help from the journalism school and we are that is split between Columbia Journalism School and Stanford Engineering. He had a bunch of money to give to those two schools. I want to make those people work together, not just put their name on some building. Basically, to get a journalist.
That's good. That's good.
I'm here in the capacity of representing projects, a couple of different projects, trying to make connections. Things on the West Coast, and among them. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gideon Goldberg. I am for the Guardian in London. I try and fight the good fight. Accessibility and metadata and stuff. Try and make our hopefully, I'll manage to make editorial and end users a little bit better.
Video and that work, and then developer, happy to do all of it.
Hey, my name's Steve. Reservation reformatting, which guy had vision, and trying to be work with member are actually accessible, captions and
My name is Travis. I'm at the University of South Carolina. I do a lot of work with media archives, media content, format, that I can find in the findings that hold together, that kind of accessible.
I'm Dave Wright. I work at New York University as an archivist in the television station. Signal started broadcasting on for decades, started public airwaves 5 years ago, so we started a couple years ago, and the library and the people could be requirements like take more responsibility, take more responsibility as an educational organization than for so trying to figure out how to use more
Hi, I'm John T. I also work at BBC Newslands, so be working on similar products that utilise some of our speech text tools, which is kind of also interesting to hear how you guys are using similar tools. And previously I worked on the BBC's media player, our National Flash player, and our FA-Dash on the-S.
My name's Reese. I work at provider to capture subtitling, subtitling. We have a network of transcription lists. I'm particularly interested in hearing more about how shred
They
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, we can get started. Okay, we can get started with the first one.
Hi. As I said just before, my name's Mark Boaz. I'm going to try and keep it quite short. Keep it quite short, as short as possible, and hopefully have a few questions. Feel free to just interrupt at any time. First of all, I wanted to say, Pietro and Ben for putting this conference together. I wouldn't have believed that. It was actually possible. So many like-minded people in the same room. When I first started looking at time, text, and audio and video, there didn't seem to be that much. Now it really seems like it's really moving. So it's great to see. So I'm just going to tell a quick story about which has kind of been a passion of mine for the last 7 years almost, and then maybe we can talk a little bit amongst ourselves. It started off with the very first Mozilla Festival, which was called Drumbeat, back in 2011. And I wanted to be part of it, and I wanted to be part of the science fair. So I put together a really quick demo. That I thought might be interested, and luckily I was selected. And so I demoed this at the science fair, and I always like to kind of go through it. So I'm just hopefully going to use a little bit of time to show you a very early demo. Let's see if this works. Okay, at the time, I didn't even know about transcription or alignment or anything like that. So I made my own sort of manual aligner. And it basically goes like this. Now let me see if I can get this right. Sync mode, yeah. Sorry, the volume wasn't great there. I didn't realise that. But sorry.
Is there the sound settings to make sure you upload it on HD?
Okay.
All the beauty of it is
Yeah. Thanks very much. HDMI. Okay, so let's try playback mode.
that works.
Yeah.
I am happy to join with you today
And then we also have
down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
So that was the start of my adventure with time, text, and audio. And it got me into the science fair, which was great. I met a load of cool people like Ben, and it's kind of gone from there. Okay. Then, actually with Ben, and somebody called Henrik Molk, and so I should make it clear that I did not come up with the term hyper audio. Henrik Molk did, and he worked with us on this project with Radiolab, which was 2011, and he had a similar vision to me. Ben brought us together to work on it. Henrik was a journalist, and so he came from a slightly different perspective, and we made this, sorry, don't think the link's there, but you can look it up, and I'll give you the link at the end. Demo that used SoundCloud as a content management system for comments and images that moved in time to the audio, and it also had an interactive transcript, which we'll come to later, that allowed you to click on the words and go straight to that part of the audio. So what I realized when I was doing this, that there was some value here. It wasn't just about having fun and making things that were fun. by adding timings to text to make it, oh, that should say audio, you make it accessible because people who maybe cannot hear can still consume audio by looking and clicking. You make it searchable because search engines like text, they don't really like audio, and that's also discoverable. Searchable is more, you can look through, find things very easily, and shareable. You can give time codes to people and point people to that exact point that you want them to go to. So what the dream became was, as hypertext is to text, I wanted to make hyper audio to audio. So it just felt like it was taking things a little bit further forward. But then I realized that in order to do this, we needed to have time transcripts. And how do we do that? I don't want to sit there pressing the space button through every single transcript that I have. So you have to look into how to do this, and there's various ways. And one way that's now becoming very viable is to use speech-to-text algorithms that generally do a good job, depending on the quality of the audio and the accent, of giving you a time transcript back. And much to my surprise and joy, I realized that most of the services will give you the timings as well as the transcript as a byproduct of the transcription algorithm. So that's one way of doing it, but then you need to correct it. Later on, I founded a business that was all about correcting machine-generated speech-to-text. Or you can do and use like Elliot's tool, OTranscribe, and actually type it in yourself. Elliot's tool makes it very easy for you to do that. And then you can use an aligner that will then align that transcript, and then you don't really need to correct it. It generally gets it right each time. Or you can use a mixture of both. Now, HyperAudio as a service is kind of a misnomer, because most of the stuff on it is video. In fact, all of the stuff on the HyperAudio service, which is just kind of a proof of concept for our technology, is video. But what I always say is that because video usually has an audio track, then it's equally applicable to that. And generally we're now finding that video is a big part of why people are transcribing stuff. So I was an Open News Fellow. I worked with Al Jazeera in Doha, and this was a time of the US presidential debates. And they wanted to try out this technology. So we got some stuff transcribed, and what we tried out was the ability to kind of search. So this allowed us to do an interactive that you could search for a particular word, and it would tell you how much it occurred in a certain transcript and who said it, which was interesting to see. And we kind of took that further on the State of the Union speech, and we searched various different transcripts to do that. And in here we had actually a small hidden function that would allow you to play back, and I haven't got time for it now, but every time somebody said a particular word. Each word has a timing, so we knew when to start and stop, and we could just kind of go through and play the same word over and over again. And it was great to hear Mitt Romney just say economy for about 30 seconds without stopping in various different ways. Later on I might be able to find that and we can listen to it. So while I was doing all this, I kind of came up with an idea that I thought might be interesting. And the idea was that since we already had the text and we had the timings to audio and video, we could make it easier to edit by using the text as a base for editing. So we came up with this idea of what we called a HyperAudio pad that allowed you to kind of drag text from one side to the other side of the screen and build up your media that way, which we found made it very much easier to create unique audio and video pieces and remixes. Now I'm going to give a very quick demo because I realize we're pushed for time. So this is the HyperAudio pad, and here you have a classic interactive transcript, which just means that you can click on the words.
I've been a systems engineer, systems administrator.
And go to it. You can see whereabouts you are in the text by which parts of the text are actually darkened.
Who you are and what you're thinking.
But crucially, what you can do here is select any part, and I'm just doing this randomly, and start to build up your media here on the right-hand side. We have little tools for splitting things up, and then you can drag things away.
You're exposed to a lot.
And then you can produce media from various different sources. and put things together. Now, if I just do this very quickly and find something like probably US politics, just to prove the concept that you can actually put multiple things in and then it will
Systems administrator for these sort of intelligence.
jump from one to the other. We added to that the ability to sort of fade. Hold on, I'm just getting the hang of the trackpad between pieces.
For these sort of intelligence.
The candidates or their aides. The audience has taken a vow.
And even sort of trim. At this point, we only stored the timing for each word. We didn't have the duration. And that's where the trim came in very handy, just to take a bit off the end or add to the end of each section. You can also put titles in and background music. Okay. We actually got funded to do this by the Knight Foundation. Pitching this idea, and I worked with Dan and Lorian, and this was a kind of a start of a working relationship in this kind of area. So the HyperAudio Pad, as you saw it, allowed you to create audio and video pieces really easily. It was an online tool. You could add music, all the stuff that I said there. You could make remixes, but you left the source intact. It was non-destructive editing, right? Because we're just pointing to start and stop points in different parts of the video, which is really important. Later on, I had the pleasure of talking to Ted Nelson at the Internet Archive, and he was very excited about this because it was very similar to his vision for hypertext. And so this made me very, very excited that we could possibly have a new way of representing audio and video and referencing the primary source material. And this idea also of remixing the remixes, right? That because it's non-destructive, you can actually expand the remix. You can, not every remix doesn't necessarily get smaller, it can also get larger. And so the applications could be for somebody to put a prototype together of a quick cut of some piece of video or audio that they're doing, sort of quick editing, for people that just want to distribute their content as links to audio and video and don't necessarily need a finished piece. Audio and video essays, media literacy for me was a very interesting subject. So you can imagine students, instead of having a written essay, given source material and asked to mix things together to produce their own take on things, and also maybe do their own talking head, transcribe that and insert that. That's something that we're kind of looking into right now. And just kind of summaries of media. You know, you might have a conference talk, you might have gone on too long like me, and you want to just cut it down to the salient points. That could work as well. And in fact, we've set up a version of HyperAudio that will be part of this conference that we hope to put all the talks on, that people can then use to create their own sort of versions or whatever. Or just sort of casual mashups and art. I don't know if anybody's heard of Cassette Boy. In the UK, is quite famous. Uses small clips to make sort of parody videos, usually political. So all of that. This slide I'm not really going to dwell on, but we created a whole sort of ecosystem around HyperAudio, which in the end is all open source. We're totally looking for contributors. It's very loosely coupled. The different parts allowed you to create transcripts, convert transcripts, clean them up, publish them, and mix them. How am I doing for time, Pietro? All right. A couple of minutes? So this brought us to something called interactive transcripts. I just got about 3 slides on it, which is just this idea of coupling media, every piece of spoken word media, with these words that can be clicked on and shared and all that sort of thing. We are now creating a library called HyperAudio Lite that allows anybody to embed interactive transcripts into their pages that they want to. And this helps, in a way, people share audio and video, because this has been a problem, that text can often go viral, but audio and video often doesn't. So how do we do this? And now we're starting to see people working on this problem. So you can imagine the idea that you find a piece of transcript and there's an interesting bit of audio, and you just highlight the text and share it, a bit like Medium, but for audio and video. This is what the promise of an interactive transcript does for you. The idea that then that clip goes into a social media feed and maybe gets shared by many people is quite a powerful one, and people like WNYC and Audiogram and have made it Audiogram. This American Life have made Shortcut that do things like this, and they represent audio in a sort of visual way that can be consumed, crucially, silently. So often when you're scrolling through your feed on Facebook or Twitter, you don't want the audio, but you might still want to consume it. And we see people kind of pioneering this. I mean, a couple of them, AJ Plus and Channel 4, have been doing this for a while now. And I find myself consuming video now without the audio on. So that's it from me. There's some more stuff here. As I said, we went on to found another company that I have now left and have come back to sort of HyperAudio, which was Trin, which allowed the corrections. I created a big blog post on how I got to create Trin, and that will give you more detail about HyperAudio. That's kind of me online, and that's it really. Thanks. I don't know if we've got time for questions, or... Are there any questions? Yeah.
So is it something that we could use and play with and try as a program now, or is it something that we can try to allow and point for? Where is it?
So the question is, where are we now with HyperAudio? I think that's a great question. We're at the point where we're just having fun creating open source software that everybody can use. So you can go to GitHub/HyperAudio and find us. What we're trying to do is we're working with people like the Sus-Terkel Radio Archive, which is part of WFMT, to produce interactive transcripts that people can remix and use in different ways, and then feed back anything we do into the open source library that other people can then use. So the idea is that we can work on things that we're passionate about, but sustain the sort of open source ecosystem underneath it. Any other questions? Okay, if anybody wants a demo of anything, I know I went through it really, really quickly, but if anybody wants a demo of anything that I've talked about or wants some clarification, just wants to talk to me about it, please don't be shy about coming over and talking to me. Okay, thanks again.
Sorry.
These are your slides?
Yep. So hello again, I'm Chris, and I'm not going to talk about time transcripts yet. I'm going to talk about something completely different, which is the other half of my career, a thing called object-based broadcasting. Has anyone heard of the term object-based broadcasting before, or object-based audio? A few? Not enough. Let's go. So what is object-based broadcasting? We use these things, these images we prepared years ago to try and explain it, and it uses a bit of an analogy. So with traditional broadcasting, you take a number of different bits, audio recordings, video, lots of production notes and everything, and you compose a piece of linear media, which will typically be a video file or an audio file, and that gets coded up and sent to everyone, and everyone gets the exact same thing on whichever device they're using. With object-based broadcasting, we do the same thing to produce the program, the same components, but instead of mixing them down into one lump, we create a collection of what we call media objects, and then prepare some instructions on how you take those media objects and put them together into a program. And then so we send all these objects and the instructions to the people at home, and their device then reads those instructions and creates the program on their device. And the reason we want to do this is that we can then adapt the content to different devices, different people, and do lots of interesting things. So an object, in this case, we define as a piece of media with some metadata that describes what it is or how to put different bits of different objects together. And it's distinct from traditional broadcasting. In traditional broadcasting, you just get the media, you don't get the metadata. So it's really about bringing in metadata and using that is what we're talking about, really. So in the case of audio, which I work with, in the traditional sense, we take a number of audio sources, we put them through the mixer, which gives us some stereo, and then you distribute that stereo to everyone. With objects, you take all the original audio sources and distribute all those original audio sources to everyone. And meanwhile, you still do the mixing, but that mixer generates some metadata about how those objects are mixed. And then each device mixes it individually. So the reason we want to do this is because it allows us to create experiences that are personalized, that are interactive, that are immersive, so we can do 3D audio panning, and also accessible, so we can help those with hard of hearing by removing background noise and things like that. But it comes with a lot of challenges. There's currently no real formats and protocols for doing all this. When you have more objects in your production that you can broadcast, you need to scale that down, and it's very tricky to do that. If you're creating multiple different experiences at the same time, how do you listen to all of them? Things like reverberation become very tricky, and producers are a bit skeptical because they don't want people playing with their content, which is very precious to them. So we've created a number of prototypes over the years for the BBC, which I'll quickly run through. An early one was the 5 Live football experiment. So this was a football match, a radio broadcast, where using a browser-based interface, you could adjust the mix between the crowd noise and the commentary. And also you could choose your position in the stadium, so you could side with the home side or the away sides, and they would cheer depending on what happens. Forecaster is an object-based weather report, and it uses multiple layers of video to compose a weather forecast. So here you can see there's kind of hard of hearing, sorry, what do you call it? Subtitling. Signing, sorry, yeah. There's the signer here, there's the background, you've got the normal weather presenter, and you've got some overlays. And then you can put them together in the browser to create a kind of custom mix. And doing that, you can have a different layout for mobile phones, you can switch presenter, you can have the text appear in different places, you can have a high contrast background version, and lots of other interesting things. This thing itself is not an object-based broadcast, but to make a point that if you're creating audio objects, you can pan those audio objects wherever you want, so you can create immersive 3D audio experiences. And you can also use techniques called binaural to process that for headphones, so you can get a 3D audio effect over headphones. And that's what we did with an episode of Doctor Who recently, and it has a binaural mix, which if you listen on headphones, sounds pretty cool. Responsive radio is a variable length radio program. So again, it's a browser-based experience where you can set the length of the program, and the program gets remixed to that length, so any time between 15 minutes and 30 minutes. And the way we produced that is we created a graph of the story and created individual audio objects for each part of that graph. And you link the relationship of each node on the graph. You can introduce blockers, so don't go from this one to that one. You can label each audio object with characters and with locations, so that you don't mention a character unless they've been introduced and things like that. So there's a nice pretty graph that describes how it works. This is what it looked like in real life, where we printed out a script, chopped it up, and drew lines in the walls and things like that. Next. Squeezebox solves a problem that BBC World News had, where they're broadcasting to lots of different countries and they have ad breaks, but they don't fill all the ad breaks neatly. So they've got a variable amount of time to fill in each country. So they wanted a variable length video generator. So what this does is you can give it a video, it chops it up into different scenes. You can mark the scenes with their level of importance. So this scene's very important, this scene's not so important. And you can introduce times where the interesting things happen in the video. And what that does is it generates a video by first going to this video, and if it has any more time to fill, it goes to that part and that part. And it also uses speech-to-text to add in some subtitles and things like that as well. Sorry, I'm going very fast. I've only got 5 minutes, so I'll plow on. Cake, the Cook-Along Kitchen Experience, is an object-based cookery show, which adapts to well, it does things like pause when it's got to a certain stage so you can catch up. If you've ever tried to experience Jamie Oliver's 15-minute meals, you'll understand why that's important. It does things like it adjusts to the number of hobs you have in your kitchen. So if you've only got one hob, you have to make something, then take it off, and then do something else and take it off, and then combine them at the ends. Well, if you've got 4, you can do 4 things at the same time and do it in parallel. And you can also remove ingredients that you are allergic to, for instance. And The Mermaid's Tears is a radio drama that's where you can choose one of 3 characters. And so this is something we produced a couple of weeks ago. It was a live broadcast, and we were producing basically 3 programs at the same time. And you can choose to follow one of these 3 characters, and the characters go to different rooms and have different conversations. So depending on who you listen to, you've got a different take on the story. So those are just some of the prototypes we've been playing around with over the years with object-based broadcasting. We have some active projects on the go to try and turn this from prototype stage to kind of business as usual. One is called Orpheus, which I work on. It's an EU project, probably one of the last EU projects we're going to do. It's 10 organizations from 4 countries around Europe, and it's all about audio and object-based audio and creating an end-to-end tool chain. So everything you need from producing it, to storing it, to transmitting it, to distributing it, to experiencing it. We're creating the whole tool chain and trying to test the end-to-end process. The Object-Based Media Toolkit is a set of 3 tools, one for writing object-based content for things like variable length and variable depth programs, one for recording those objects, and another for playing that experience. And so while I showed you this picture earlier on about having to cut things up and draw lines, that's trying to do that intelligently in software and make it very easy. And Optic is a framework for object-based production in the clouds, and it's all about taking data and trying to enhance that with as much metadata as possible. So running it through speech to text, running it through kind of mood analysis for music or whatever, and getting as much information as possible, and then making that available to production tools that we can use to create these experiences. So that's me. Here's some links. I'll put the slides on this Slack. Thank you very much. Any questions? Go.
For the, I think it was the sponsored radio project.
Yeah.
How much of that requires transition from the creator and the marketing?
It's a very manual process. So which is why the Object-Based Media Toolkit starts at the writing stage, because we don't write it with variable length in mind. There's a lot of work to do to go back, and the team that did it had to work hand in hand with the producer because there's a lot of creative decisions along the way about how you chop things up and different storylines and all that sort of thing. It's very much a creative process. So what we're trying to do is make that really easy to do in the writing stage, and then that makes everything else a lot easier for the rest of it. Cool, thanks very much.